Well, good morning, everyone, to the Bryan Air Podcast. A little bit different this morning. I get to be Batman while Brian is Robin this morning.
For a change.
Yeah, how you pal?
Yeah, good and you, man.
Cool.
So you got command there today.
Yeah, listen, this is quite something different. Very, very different on this side of the desk for a change.
It's quite cool, quite a few things to manage, but yeah, nice to give
cool.
you a go there. And
Yeah,
I mean, let's kick it off straight away. I think you've had a difficult week. Everyone knows. I didn't expect you to be here today, early in the morning, ready for a show, running things.
Yeah, look, it's been an incredibly difficult week for me, the family. Tragic and very, very sad, but
Dedicated to Brett today.
dedicated to Brett.
And your family.
Thanks very much, man. Thanks to everyone who sent messages of love and condolences and support this week. It was so much appreciated, and I was actually so overwhelmed by all the support received, and it was amazing. So thank you, everyone. But yeah, I mean, back to why I thought it was important that we be here today and do the show is throughout everything that we've been through the last couple of years. When we started this podcast, it was started with the view in mind that we were going to do this to send a message of positivity, remaining strong, just remaining consistent and having something to do and something of purpose. And that's why this show for me this week was so important to do, because I thought, if I'm going to honor my brother, I might as well make sure that I get up today, put up a good face and come and try it.
And he was a fan of the show.
He was. Yeah, I mean, we had a lot of discussions about him earlier this year when, he was on the road to recovery. We were very proud of him, and it was very inspirational. So, I could not let this one slide today.
No.
And, so his name.
In his name, awesome. And, as you said, tragic, but you hit the nail on the head there. The show was all about, inspiring and providing a bit of support and positivity. And we started off with, support aviation, and it turned into a little bit more than that, I think, which is great, feather in our cap, and something I'm really proud of. So nice thing.
No, exactly, man. And I think, more to it is for us on a personal level. It's kept you and I very centered. It's helped keep the wings level, ball in the middle sort of thing.
Yeah.
Without this, I think I would have struggled a lot more, to deal with everything in general. And so no, that's why it's so important. We're here today. We're going to put out a show. It is our last one for the year.
Can you believe it?
What is this episode?
81.
81. Yeah. So we didn't quite hit the 100 this year as we hoped to.
Early next year.
We pushed hard.
Yeah.
But next year, magic 100 to come.
We'll get there.
Yeah. So that's obviously why this week the show times were a bit jumbled around. Obviously,
I'm sure people will forgive us.
Yeah. So we'll do our best next year to try and manage as best we can. Obviously, we'll see what Eskom has in store for us, and we'll take it from there.
Yeah, that's it. Obviously, the show times being live, you got to anticipate the week ahead. So it's not just a case on a Wednesday night to decide what time we're going to do it on a Thursday like we used to.
Yeah.
Obviously, now we like to let everyone know when we're going to be live. So we chose the Gareth Cliff slot this morning. So don't expect a huge amount of engagement at 7 o'clock on a Friday morning, but nonetheless, obviously the show goes out as a podcast, and I think, Ryan, we're going to talk about the show a bit later on.
Yeah.
But the podcast has really become, the audio versions really become the bread and butter of the show.
Yeah.
And it's doing really well. So although we live and the engagement comes through, which has added an awesome element, and I don't know, there's a different vibe to it being live. We both love it. It's similar to that feeling just before takeoff or coming into land. It's very, very similar. Clicking that live button, it's an awesome thing.
It is quite something. I just said now, just before we kicked off the show this morning, I had the butterflies in my stomach all over again. Probably more so because I've got all these buttons in front of me today, and I've got to get used to running this thing.
Oh, you're doing all right there.
It's quite a lot of fun, I must say.
That's cool, eh? There's some nice tech there.
It's cool to play with buttons again.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
news-wise this week, we'll stay not stay clear of it, but obviously season finale for us. So we're gonna wrap things up, talk about some highs, talk about some lows.
Yeah.
It's been a challenging year. Started off, okay. I think we've improved a bit on the show, the way we deliver the product. It's taken a bit of work. It wasn't a natural thing for us at the beginning. So the more we've done it, the more comfortable it's become, and the more we've actually enjoyed the show. I think it was definitely a case of we really had to, get ourselves here initially, and it was a major challenge just to push out a show every week. But it's become a lot easier. There's no question. So a lesson for anyone doing anything that they don't quite enjoy or they don't quite have the hack of right now, the more you do it, there's no question, the easier it gets. And certainly been that way on the show. We've had a sort of crew change on the show as well. There were 3 people, the dynamic of 3 people. I mean, Brett added a nice element to the show. And but when he left sort of mid-year, I think we changed things up a bit. We comfortable together. Not that we weren't before, but on the show, very much comfortable now. And I think everyone's enjoying the dynamic between us. They enjoy the bit of banter, and it definitely reminds me of being in a flight deck with your mate and having a good time.
No, absolutely, man. I wouldn't have it any other way. I mean, there's that whole saying, you need to do something for 10,000 hours before you get any.
So we're not quite there yet, but not far off.
Yeah. No, that's it. I mean, we started off in the beginning of the year. We hadn't even attempted a live show in the beginning of the year yet.
Yeah.
There was still so much to try and figure out, and the going live thing was quite a daunting sort of
it's a challenge
idea at that stage. But middle of the year we decided to put out that separate live show on a Tuesday night where we would drink a few whiskeys.
That was fun. Let's face it, the only reason we're not doing that is, I think if we didn't have kids at home and there weren't a few other responsibilities, that would definitely be something that we probably carry on with.
Yeah.
But obviously sacrifices need to be made. It became quite time consuming, that.
It did.
And then Wednesday turned into a major hangover in the morning. So we weren't overly productive on the Wednesday, and then we were doing the show on Thursday. So it was that was a cool thing. But we made some nice connections there.
We did. I mean, just a few names. Jono Collins.
Yeah.
I got a message from
him. Got to get Jono back on, actually.
Yes.
Yep.
Actually had a wonderful message from Jono Collins earlier this week. Obviously, it was quite relatable. Byron Edgington from the States. That was a cool,
great guy.
Story. And Angie McIntosh, Ben Hall, Leon Fayun, all the guys, just to name a few. So awesome connections, grew the network, and
I think that's what next year for us is going to be all about. Or say next season for us will be about, is maintaining those connections that we've made, but then also establishing some new ones. And now we've got a bit of a framework for how we do it. Talk about some of the guys that have come in as sponsors on the show. Flying Socks there just comes to mind right now. 1 day left, by the way, to get yourself a pair of Flying Socks, and using the Bryan Air coupon.
Yes.
So that's 10% off. So you can continue buying Flying Socks beyond that. But if you want 10% off, you're going to have to do it today.
Absolutely. Yeah. Keegan has just launched a set of Christmas themed socks. So, well worth the purchase. And, why not grab them this year? You might not have the same styling going around next year. So, support Keegan. Get yourself some Flying Socks before Christmas, as well as if you're in the market for a new pair of sunglasses. What about
Flying Eyes?
Flying Eyes.
Yes, same thing as well. And the reason I bring that up is we established a nice connection with those guys. We managed to work out a bit of an affiliate type of link with them, and that's what we want to do going forward. So provide a level of support, bring anyone into our network that we've managed to create with the podcast, and then use it to launch your product. A nice way to do it.
Exactly.
So we more of that next year. We'll as you said, Ryan, we'll try and stick to a set slot time. I think it does make it much easier for the listeners to see us.
Yeah.
However, we were at the mercy. We are still at the mercy of things like load shedding, but not going to get too into that now.
No.
We'll take it as it comes.
Yeah.
Next year.
No, exactly. I think we both looking forward to this break coming up. Like we said, quite a bit now.
We need it.
Yeah, it's been a tough, onerous year.
Yeah.
And I'm certainly looking forward to just winding down a bit.
Yeah.
Family time. Just re-energize, come back strong next year.
Yeah, we
have to.
Yeah, not just on the podcast, but on a personal level as well.
Everything, yeah.
And on a work level as well. I think a lot of people in that same boat. If you look at what's happening, in the UAE, a lot of guys being called back. I think there's going to be a lot of movement here locally. I'm sure there's a lot of local guys. Fly Safair comes to mind. I know there's a few guys looking at places in Fly Dubai, which causes a bit of movement here. There's a lot of Mango guys that don't have positions right now. I know a lot of them will slot across into Safair. It just makes sense.
Yeah.
And a bit of movement locally is fantastic for the industry. So I think a lot of people looking at next year as a way to say, right, reset. Now we've got to start to move. I mean, when all this happened, there was, let's face it, a giant excuse there to say, well, the reason I don't have a job is this.
Yeah.
But now as time goes on, it gets, there's less of an excuse, I'd say, to not be doing something.
Exactly.
And obviously, not just from a financial point of view, but from a mental point of view, you can't just sit around inevitably waiting for something to happen. You've got to go and make something happen. So I think a lot of people are maybe looking at it, big New Year's resolution, pick myself up and get on with it next year. There are actually jobs out there at the moment.
Absolutely, man. I'm also certainly looking forward to next year. I do hope that 2022 will be a lot better than 20 and 21.
It was so disappointing this year because we almost thought, this episode for us was going to be like a celebration type of episode. And obviously what's happened personally for yourself this week has obviously put paid to that. But more so, the news of, what we got from the UK with being borders closed to South Africa and things like that put a major dampener on what otherwise could be regarded as a successful year. Let's face it, if you go back to 2020 and look at, where we came and up very close to the end of 2021,
Yeah.
I mean, a vast improvement. A lot of people are flying again and, airlines are operating at close to full capacity. So from an aviation point of view and a tourism point of view, things were on a marked climb. And then very quickly, by some poor political decisions, that was, stopped in its tracks, which is a little bit concerning because it makes you realize how quickly things can actually turn around and how volatile things are at the moment. It's not the case of, you see this momentum curve going forward. Now it's actually a case of where a politician can make let's face it, a poor decision and affect things in such a dramatic way. I mean, one little announcement affected the tourism travel industry here massively. It put paid to a lot of people's December holidays. Even today in Johannesburg, there's the threat of, are we going to get locked down on Sunday night and another family meeting? I don't know. It's probably inevitable that even if it's Gauteng, that's locked in. I don't know if it's going to affect cross-border travel or provincial travel. Hopefully not, because that'll be a disaster over December. But there is this looming threat. And then, people that are thinking of, taking a drive to Cape Town or, cruising along the Garden Route, you start thinking twice about it. The fuel price has gone through the roof. That doesn't help things like that.
That's insane. The expense. I mean, they were talking about on the radio the other day. I listened to 5 minutes of Jack Aranda. I'll fess up to that.
Yeah.
But they were talking something along the lines now to drive to Cape Town this year. Just your petrol, toll gates, and your wear and tear expenses on your vehicle to and from Johannesburg is in the region of about 10,000 rand. So yeah, massively expensive this year to try and do anything like that or go anywhere.
Very difficult.
Just like you said, it's very, very scary as to how volatile things have become and how quickly it can change. We were so looking forward to a much more festive and celebratory sort of December. We actually had family coming out, or family had planned to come out this year to see my folks again and everything. And very sad. But let's hope that next year's
it is. Let's face it. This final wave needed to come. It was always going to come. So this fourth wave, call it the final wave. There might be another smaller one later down the line, but there's no question that this thing is ending.
I think so.
And it's either going to be ended by the politicians and the media once and for all, or I think the people will just end it because.
Well, I think so. I think people are eventually going to get to a point where you can't anymore. We spoke about it briefly the other day where we said it's almost kind of dangerous what's happening. Where the longer this drags out, the less people are starting to really, I suppose, just becoming a bit more careless about it.
Yeah.
To the point where, like, what happens if a really, really dangerous variant does come out and no one gives a hoot?
Then you've cried wolf once, so
exactly.
It's not going to happen. There's a lot there, but it had to happen. I predicted 6 months ago that in December we'll be locked down. We're not yet, so let's just hope that that we don't. But
well, I thought let me throw something at you, Bryan. Seeing as I'm in the hot seat today, we've been at this podcast now for 2.5 years.
Yeah.
Next year's going to be.
Well, it's actually going into season 4.
Yeah, season 4.
Yeah. So it's over a 4-year period, but not a full 4 years of doing the show.
And never on your show have you actually been interviewed.
Yeah.
So let's put the spotlight on you today. And I suppose let's wrap up this year's season with telling us a bit about the Bryan Air or the Bryan Roosevelt podcast journey. And
thanks, Ryan. I think good opportunity. There's a few people that have actually said that. We haven't spoken too much about myself in general, all the podcast on the podcast, but maybe now a good time. It has been a journey, and it's been one that started off a quote, a Jordan Peterson quote, where he said, work as hard as you can at one thing and see what happens. So I thought I was getting a lot of value from listening to podcasts. I truly believe that it's one of the real sort of secret ways you can learn a hell of a lot of things. And I think if you are not listening to good podcasts, and there's a lot of rubbish ones out there as well, but there are some really, really good high value educational podcasts often in a very narrow field that might interest you. And I was getting a lot of information from these things. I mean, I love the Joe Rogan show. It's entertaining, and you always come out and you learn something from it. And they're having fun doing it.
Yes.
So we tried to, when you came along, I tried to sort of mix that in and say, right, well, we don't get a lot of time to go, spend together. So why don't we try and have a show where, we with mates, we having a good time, but we also doing, we also providing a bit of information, a bit of knowledge on the show. And one thing I always enjoyed flying was talking about aviation when you're in the flight deck.
Yeah.
And I think that sort of flight deck banter is something that a lot of people have really missed. You and I haven't, because we've done it every week.
Yeah. Yeah.
And we end up, everyone flying knows what it's all about. You sit there together, and on a long flight, you end up talking. And a lot of guys have a lot of negative things to say, a lot of guys, moaning about the salary, the roster, this and that. And it's very easy to get yourself sucked into that sort of mode. But a lot of guys enjoy talking about the industry or whatever it might be. And I always enjoyed that sort of chat. It was one of the things that I enjoyed most about airline flying. And we managed to bring that into the show. And I think it's awesome. And we decided on a news-based show because you've got an endless amount of content. Let's face it, if we had to rely on interviewing someone every week, first of all, I'm not a huge fan of the interview style. If you watch a Joe Rogan podcast, he's not interviewing someone. A lot of people watch it to see what Joe's going to say, not necessarily the person that he's interviewing.
Exactly that.
So
there's so many of those interview type podcasts out there, like the high performance podcasts. And there's only so many of those kind of people that you can actually interview. So particularly in our sort of industry. So.
So we try to keep it a little bit more of a conversation and a chat. Obviously, with being live has added so much more to that because you get the people that are coming in that can add value as you go. But that's basically where it came from, where it started. And then as I said, that Jordan Peterson quote, work as hard as you can on one thing and see what happens. And let's face it, we've really worked our asses off to make sure that we can produce a decent product. Now, my goal with this thing is to have a South African-based aviation podcast that South African aviators can actually be proud of and claim as their own.
Yes.
I quite like the fact that there's guys overseas that, there might be an Aussie aviator in Cathay that doesn't have a cool Australian aviation-based podcast. And so this is an South African aviation podcast for South African aviators wherever you are around the world.
Yeah.
And of course, we airline pilots, so we're on the airline side, and we know that not all airline pilots are out there reading Airliner World magazines or Flight International magazines, because you get to a point where you actually know what you're kind of doing, so you don't have to carry on schooling yourself up on what's happening in the industry. So we thought, well, what we can do once a week is bring a bit of South African humor, bit of flight deck banter, and we can talk about those things. So the guys still get the gen about the industry. We can talk about home here in South Africa.
Yeah.
And we've got an endless amount of content to talk about. That content sometimes is quite difficult to put together. It takes quite a while, starting on a Monday, you start gathering the content, reading a few stories. But what it has done, it's really forced us to take note of what's happening around the world from an aviation perspective. And it's made quite a big difference in my sort of professional life here at Samero from knowing exactly what's going on. And it's now become just part of my weekly workflow. Knowing where to find the information at first was a challenge. So you go to all the free places first and all the usual places. But then I realized that there's some wonderful places to get your aviation news.
Yeah.
There's a guy in the States, I think cranky.com, I think is he's excellent. And just little short pieces, and I take quite a lot from there. The Air Current has been a wonderful source of information, well-written things. And a lot of the journalism in aviation is excellent. If you compare it to other industries, like, you go into Fear 24 and these useless places.
Yeah.
The journalism is so crap, you don't even want to read it.
Yeah.
Whereas a lot of the aviation stuff is superb, even the free stuff. So we got an endless amount of content. We sit here together, we produce a show, and now we're getting close to that 100 mark. So yeah, we've produced I think a decent product. I think we can improve a lot. I
totally agree. We've gotten it to a point where we are both really, really proud of the product that's getting pushed out. And I'm phenomenally proud to be a part of this. We love what we do with this. And our whole mantra is definitely to just keep on legging it up, improving it, and taking it to the next level. Yeah, there have been shows that we are supremely proud of, other ones that we're not so proud of.
Yeah.
But that's all part of the learning process.
And sometimes what happens is you have a lot of content, you think, hey, today's going to be a great show, and then you almost get too swamped in the content, you don't really have a conversation.
Yeah.
And it's all about trying to actually have a conversation, which is what it was all about. But anyway, asking where the show's going, we're going to carry on. We're going to push out a weekly show. We're not going to do 2 a week, going to do 1 a week. I think 1 a week's about right for us.
Yeah.
And we want to keep connecting with people. I get emails through the week. People contact me and often have something very nice to say or a bit of advice here and there. And I'd like to be able to get back to those people a bit quicker sometimes. With everything going on, it's not always that easy, but maybe a better way of, for me, certainly to communicate with all the people that are supporting us.
Yeah.
I mean, I'll take the opportunity now just to thank a few people. We've obviously had a few Patreon pledges, and people have donated some money to us for the show, and we've used that. We've used it for the hosting of the show. We've bought 1 or 2 things as well. So all that money has actually gone into the podcast. Hopefully, produce that better product. So Dino Jennings, Dale Williams. Dale, he doubled up his monthly pledge to us. So there was only a $10 and a $5 a month option. So Dale took out, with 2 email addresses, he took out 2 of those $10 pledges for us. Wow. So Dale, thank you so much for that. As I said to him in a mail yesterday, that he basically helped us get a better contract with the hosting and everything. So that's helped a lot. Duncan Gillespie's been supportive from the start. Can't thank Duncan enough. Adrian Badenhorst has been fantastic. Another guy in Hong Kong, Imre Karuks.
Yes, Karuks,
mate of yours also, and my old man Keith. We've relied on those pledges, and it's made a big difference. So thank you for everyone that really, really does mean a lot, and it's gone a long way. Little things like that. If you look at the podcast, it's an expense. Let's face it, an aviation podcast. You're not going to go to Spotify, Joe Rogan levels of $100 million sales, but we're not doing it for the money at all. Let's put that on the table now. This is simply I said to Dale yesterday that the value of the podcast is the connections that you make. It's the network. It's not the podcast itself.
Yeah.
But man, it's a fun thing to do.
It totally is. And again, it's our adrenaline rush every week. It's the closest thing that you and I get to that same exhilarating feeling of V1. And we do it because we love to. And
we love aviation.
We do. And from my side as well, thank you everyone for the phenomenal support. It's so cool to know that what we're doing is valued, and the guys are enjoying it, and that we can bring continuous relevant content every week, and super proud of it, man.
At first you don't even know, am I producing relevant content? And it takes a while before you realize that the people are actually enjoying it. So it's made a massive impact on our sort of personal life, our egos in certain ways, and but it's been wonderful. Not gonna stop, and I'd encourage anyone else out there that is thinking about doing a podcast, go and do it. It's a wonderful thing to do.
Yeah, no, you have to. The challenge is immense. The learning curve is just brilliant. In fact, I must, I was listening to Gareth Cliff on the way in this morning as well, and he was talking about the people over the seminar. What are they going to do? How are they going to keep themselves busy, like playing games, building puzzles, all this kind of stuff to keep your mind going, to not let your brain go flat.
Yeah.
And kind of was thinking about it in the context of the podcast. It's exactly what we've done. We've tried to keep ourselves stimulated.
Well, that's what it was for at the beginning. I think everyone was in that phase, when the shit hit the fan a couple of years ago. What the hell are we going to do? And the podcast was the one thing we said, right, let's do this. Let's work as hard as we can on this. Let's try and build something, and then reap the rewards from it later, which is great. Yeah. We need to thank someone else though. We got to thank Sim Aero.
Absolutely.
Sim Aero's been, without Sim Aero, there would be no podcast at all. They've provided us with a studio, a room. They provided us with income for work we've done for them. And without income coming through, we wouldn't be able to do the show.
No,
it's quite simple as that. So a big shout out to Samero. And we want to do something a little bit different next year with Samero, an area that I'm quite passionate about in aviation. Obviously, this being a training center goes without saying. Training is plays a big part in what we do here in our daily lives. So I'd like to bring in a training element, possibly once a month, a little segment sponsored by Samero, where we either chat amongst ourselves around about a particular element of training, or we bring someone else on. So instead of it being an interview based on your life or your aviation journey, we bring someone on and we talk about a specific area in aviation. So be it, you might be an expert on a CRM, whatever it might be. Let's talk about that as an element for 20 minutes once a month type of thing. So that'll be a segment that we bring into the show. Don't necessarily have to do that bit live, but it will come through on the live broadcast anyway. So I'm looking forward to that. Will be quite fun. And so that's one of the changes for next year. And then I think from my side, it does help to try and keep the structure in the show. So you start off with a bit of a welcome. You and I have a bit of a chat. We've been going into South African news and international news. I'd like to kick off with the Bryan Air advisory a bit more, as a more stable piece next year. Sometimes you get lost in it, and people love that side of the show.
The advisory has been a hit.
They've been a hit.
I think people have loved it, and I certainly enjoy it as well. I mean, you've got some excellent tips. I'm always learning these little hacks from you, and it makes you want to go out and actually look for more, things to make your life simpler, easier, more convenient, productive. And so we definitely need more of those.
So we'll talk about that a bit more. And like I said, the viewers, now that we know who's watching us, so a lot of airline pilots are watching us, not always interested in just hearing about aviation, want to talk about a few other things. And we've been fortunate here again, Samero, where we've had other tasks to do, and we've needed to be productive and think out the box, be a bit creative. So that's where a lot of the productivity tips or tech tips have come from. So they're all trialed and tested, and we'll keep that going next year. How are you enjoying running the show there?
Man, I'm actually having quite a lot of fun. This is it's busy. I've got
I see you switching things there and watching.
I've had to sort of figure this out a bit on the fly. You gave me about 10 or 15 minutes of duel before we started the show.
You're handling it right there.
Look, once you find the groove, this is actually very, very, very cool. I get to see why you enjoy this even more now.
It is.
It's a tremendous amount of fun, and sitting in the host's hot seat. Look, I must be honest, to learn how to, how you've had to just learn how to do this, man. I've had to try and get better at public speaking. But you've had to do this on top of all of that. It's quite something, I must say. Kudos to you, man.
Thanks, man. No, I've enjoyed it though. It's been fun. I've enjoyed trying to figure it out. There's very few sort of educational things on how to actually do it, but there's so much you can pick up on the internet. I think a few big changes we made, Ryan. Obviously, the sound mixer made our life so much easier this year. We added that in. I think a lot of people have commented on the sound, saying there's been a vast improvement there. Long may that continue. And but at first, you start doing it and you think, but why doesn't my sound sound like it does on Joe Rogan's show? And you go through this phase of figuring out, yes, but I mean, we're using good microphones, we're doing this, we're doing that, and it's often a very, very small thing. And I think a lot of people find that, not necessarily with a podcast, but just in everyday life, they're doing things properly. They've bought the right things. They're following the correct process, but they're not getting the ideal result. And I think a bit of advice there, where you tend to look, well, what's a big thing I need to change? It might not be a big thing, might be a very small thing. It's one of the reasons I stopped actually through the year. We used to speak quite a lot about making incremental gains.
Yes.
Making a small gain.
Yeah.
And then I actually listened to a podcast, actually that high performance podcast with Jake and Damien in the UK. They're excellent, those guys.
I really enjoy that show. It's tremendous.
Yeah. And they were talking about not sort of dissing incremental gains, but they made a point that was very valid. And the point was, you got to get the basics right before you can start thinking about making gains. So you must start with the core basics of something, and then you can make those gains.
Yeah.
And then another thing that definitely sort of changed our mindset was try to be a little bit more process based than outcome based. So you think, right, we're gonna have a great show today. We're gonna talk about this and this and this. Right, off we go. And then the show doesn't end up quite how you wanted it to go, and it can possibly be not necessarily that you did anything wrong, but maybe the delivery or maybe the process that you got going was wrong. We've seen it here before. If we do an afternoon show, sometimes very dependent on how your day has been work-wise. If your show starts at 4 p.m. and you've had a very difficult day and your mind is not quite here, it's very difficult to actually produce a good show because you're not thinking clearly.
Yeah.
And you have to take a bit of time. You almost need to sit and, clear your mind. But how good of an example is that for what everyone goes through every day?
Exactly.
Sometimes you fly nicely, you're nice and accurate, nice landings, nice approaches. Other days, for no reason, you descend a bit late, you're a little bit fast on the eye, whatever it might be.
Yeah.
And there's little things that if you can start to identify what's making this show good or what made that approach good, and you can identify that thing, write it down, and make that part of your process going forward, it's going to make your life better.
No, absolutely. Like I said earlier, I mean, there certainly have been shows where we know we've walked away from it. We're very proud of those shows, and other shows where it's like, man, that wasn't great. And like you said, it boils down to obviously trying to perform at your highest level doing this, but coping with everything else at the same time. And just finding those special ingredients that will work towards making this great. And it's just one of those things. The Formula One drivers have to do the same.
Formula One, man. I'd like to know what everyone thinks of that. This last race, I can't watch this last one.
No, look, I must say, I caught.
If Hamilton wins, I'm cancelling the podcast.
No.
Okay.
No,
because he might win. Oh man, no shit. It's Formula One's been excellent this year. Think about those guys that made the Drive to Survive show on Netflix. They are going to be cooking when this series comes out, because what a year of Formula One it's been.
Exactly. No, the guys that produced that series, I think, really hit the notes on what their objectives were, was to get people sucked back into Formula One, and get their heads back into it and pique the interest.
Yeah, provide a show for not necessarily avid Formula One supporters, but people that try and bring people into the sport.
Exactly.
So
I mean, doesn't that kind of sound familiar?
Yeah, it has. I mean, let's face it. I couldn't think of anything worse than having just an aviation-based podcast, because it would be, you'd be limited. But having aviation as your core, and also one of the things we've mentioned a lot is focus on the thing that you are good at. If we've spent 20 years flying, then obviously it becomes a specific knowledge area. Focus on that. Let that be your base, and then branch out from there.
Exactly.
But if we're going to start a show and it's only going to be on productivity and tech tips, then by episode 3, we're going to be scraping at the barrel.
Yeah, exactly.
But when it comes to your specific area of knowledge, it's actually quite easy.
Yeah.
So focus on what you're good at.
Exactly. Yeah. No, listen.
A few comments coming through.
Quite a few. Yeah. I've actually had a bit of a fun. I've been bringing up the comments slowly throughout the show, just trying to find my rhythm. Obviously, you're quite good at this. You know when to bring the comments up.
No, you're doing
it quite relevant.
You're doing a good job, yeah.
But we've had some wonderful messages. Janet Klutter, good morning, gentlemen. Kudos to Ryan very courageous to be broadcasting this morning.
It
So
is. It is indeed. It's actually ridiculous that you are here broadcasting. So.
Hashem, thanks, Janet. I do appreciate that. But like I said, it's we just want to keep going strong. Message from Nicole Katsuris.
My missus.
Yeah. Morning, guys. Leon Frelion. Good morning, guys. Can't thank you enough for your support and all the connections this year. You caused a skyrocket effect in my growth as a person, business, and wannabe pilot.
Yeah, well, Leon's been a fantastic guy. We've learned a lot from him. High energy, goes around, just gets things done. Leon, we are to support you going forward, and it was nice to bring him into our network. Craig actually brought Leon into our network with Aviation 4SA.
Yeah.
Craig being a massive supporter of the show. He's provided us with, access to his app that we use here at the Sim Center all the time. And thank you, Craig, and thanks for bringing Leon across to us. Those are the type of connections you really want, and those are the type of connections that actually end up pulling you through hard times, but also propelling you to another level. Sign going on in the background now. Go Aviate. I mean, Jason as well. I know he commented earlier on. Jason has been wonderful in his support, and that I know will continue as well. I see Oki Stain.
Yes. Yeah. I was actually going to mention him now. I mean, tremendous support.
He was very pissed off that it didn't push out a show last week. He said, "Hey guys, where's the show?"
Apologies, Oki. Yeah, last week's show was one of the ones that didn't go so well, and we just decided to.
Well, it didn't represent the brand, so we left it, and there was obviously a few other things going on. So, but that's the advantage, Ryan, of we're not tied to anyone, nor will we ever will be. This is yours and my show, and we're not tied to a corporate or anything. So if we don't want to put out a show in the week, we don't have to. We're here because we want to be here. We're not forced to be here. But if we can't for whatever reason, then it doesn't go out. But I think we've proved our consistency anyway.
Yeah. No, we'll definitely just keep doing it and trying to do it better every time going forward.
I just want to shout out as well to the guys in Hong Kong that have commented and that come in and support us. That's made a big difference.
Absolutely.
Andrew Evans comes to mind there.
Yeah.
Andrew's been really loyal, and he's taken us. I'm sure he was the guy that I think put our show on the cafe pilot board there initially, because that's when we sort of we started gaining a lot of momentum there. I mean, we went number 1 in Hong Kong in aviation, which is pretty crazy. Let's talk about that as well, because we've been watching the stats a bit closer this year. I've tried to look at the stats to say, well, why did that episode work and why did that one not? Because, and it's often the opposite way around. You think, but this was an awesome show. That was an average show, but this show did really well. Sometimes it's a time slot with an hour or so difference.
Yeah.
Other times it's the delivery that we had on the show was a bit different. Which one stuck out for you this year? Which one did you enjoy the most?
Recently, the one that we had where we decided to go rogue and we pulled old Dobbo on, and we ended up going for like an hour and a half. That's the most recent one that I thought we did very well at.
That was a cool show, and that show did really well.
Yeah,
people liked the sort of impromptu.
Yeah.
It was a bit risky because you don't know bringing Dobbo on. He could have been 3 whiskeys down and naked on the on the show or something. But anyway, it was cool. Yeah, we went far off as well. But that was a cool one.
Yeah.
The difficult ones have been, the morning slot. Sometimes you have to pick yourself up for. You get up early, a bit of prep goes on, and you got to make sure that your energy's up.
Yeah.
And that took a bit of practice at the beginning. There were a couple of shows where you come in and you've got a long day ahead. You got 20 teams meetings afterwards, and you kind of exactly the same as those flights you have when you're signing on for like a double Cape Town or something, and this is going to be a long day.
Exactly.
But we've watched the stats. We've done well on the charts. We want to dominate and be the top aviation podcast in the world. That is it. So putting that on the table, we must be the top aviation podcast in the world.
Well,
we've got the caliber, I think, to do it, and we're going to do it. That's the goal. So we don't even want to look at, South Africa, Hong Kong, whatever it might be. We want to actually dominate the aviation podcast charts. So that's the goal. 2 airline pilots with a bit of a passion for the banter side of things. I think we can do it. So yeah, might not happen next year, but it's going to happen.
I can't agree more. If that's not the mindset, then what are we doing?
Yeah, no, we want to. That's where we're going to be.
Yeah, we're gonna aim for the stars, man, and just make it happen.
Yeah,
I suppose we've reached the 45-minute mark already, and just a few more comments coming through from Dale Joseph. Morning
Dale
from Anchorage, gents. Looking forward to you guys coming back next year. That's cool. Listening in from Anchorage. That's awesome, man.
Yeah, that's what's been nice with us. So it's those connections around the world, the expats and that around the world. That's been really cool. From your side, Ryan, obviously next year we've got a lot going on here at Simera from a professional point of view. Like I said, a lot of guys going back into flying jobs, a lot of guys moving back to the UAE, starting again at Qatar and Emirates and those. So a lot of fresh sheets of paper next year, people starting from scratch. And in a way, we're not starting from scratch. Very, very lucky, very, very fortunate. However, certainly looking at next year as the COVID element of our lives is definitely behind us now.
Yeah.
And now we must move forward into this next phase.
Yeah.
So a lot of people have been in this sort of idling phase, and I think including us to some extent. Were we going to go back and fly? What's the story? And we've secured nice positions in our current roles. Want to carry on doing this, obviously, which you're very difficult to do if you're a full-time airline pilot. So a fresh sheet of paper for us. Also look at what we've done right, what we've done wrong, put it down on a piece of paper, become a little bit more process-based from my side, and let's just hit it next year. But I want to put a bit more support in there for the guys that need it.
Absolutely. I can't agree more. That has to be the mandate. That's what we're going to do. And, we've done quite well with that so far, but we'll kick it up next year, 100%.
Yeah,
there's a lot of guys that need that support. And, we are for you guys to do just that.
Yeah.
So,
but thank you, everyone.
Thank you, guys. I suppose from our side, let's just take this opportunity now to wish everybody a very Merry Christmas.
Yeah, keep it safe on the roads.
Please do. Yeah.
Don't want any tragic stories starting next year. Safe on the roads. Those of you going away, do enjoy it. And please come back early next year. We'll start mid-January. I'll put out a date a little bit later on, but mid-January we'll be back. Then we normally take a break again, sort of mid-year, and then the break again end of the year. So a few more exciting things, a few nice guests lined up for next year, and a lot of those to do with the training element.
Yes.
So that'll be cool.
Looking forward to that.
Yeah, that'll be a nice thing.
Yeah.
But thanks so much, everyone. Love you guys, and please wrong one.
You see now. Sorry.
Yeah.
So the first glitch of the running the desk.
Yeah, you've done really well. Thank you, everyone. Have a wonderful Christmas, New Year with the family. Ryan.
Hey guys, thanks very much. Wonderful festive season. Take it easy, take it safe, and thanks again for all your support. We'll see you again next year.
Cheers, everyone.
Ciao for now.
Bye for now.
Ciao.